try to see if it works.
Yeah, and then I need a link.
Yeah. So you need to go to on your YouTube. What I can do from here, let's see. Now, if I can access to each account to this, and then on here, YouTube Studio. Content live.
Yes. Okay, next.
Yeah, but for fuck's sake.
That's fine.
Oh my god.
That's okay.
Okay. This is intense. I need to turn this on. I don't know where it's taking the audio from.
I just need the link so I can.
Yeah. Okay, so got a shareable link. So
Amazing.
how I do this? Let me see. I'm gonna give a new note, and then I'm gonna do a airdrop to you. Why?
You can just do email to me.
Okay, that's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, we've got. We're streaming live already.
Oh, nice. Already. Nice.
But we're not
And
showing the link.
cleanup app is able to be screened there?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, write your email here. Sorry.
I just emailed.
Okay. You sent it to you already, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Basta che provo col mio telefono.
See it.
What's the channel?
Okay, it
Here
is.
it is. 1 second.
So let me try as well with my phone.
Let's all try.
I can send you the link. 1 second. I'm gonna follow you. Sorry, you want more? What? Up? Okay. Something like. You want the whole screen or? Ah, okay. So you want more like a. Something like. Yeah, but like. You're gonna still see people. Like you're gonna see the back of the people from here. I can't go up.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, this is better now. This
Okay.
is great.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
No problem.
Infatti ora ce l'ho provato.
This is great.
Okay. So I keep it like this until. Okay. Un secondo, scusa, che ne provo sul cazzo qui.
No, se la tiri un po' su così sta più dritta. Ti togli le teste dopo, no? Sta qua.
Sì, il problema è che. Vabbè, sto provando. Che rimane comunque il problema delle teste. Non vedo dove cazzo è. recording and he's recording on YouTube already.
I know.
So,
But we can always create a new start time, so it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And what I can do also is, I mean, I can record with the camera as well if you want to have a thing. I can record with the camera when the event starts.
Yeah.
And so you have a copy of the event on the camera as well. Whatever.
Yeah. That'd be great.
You take SD cards.
Yeah.
I'll give you
Yeah,
one
yeah.
card.
Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm really happy we got this to work.
Yeah. Me too. I was a bit worried.
Basta sta qua.
Un secondo.
Cioè non sono uomo video, basta?
No, non ce la faccio a girare con quello. Ma lo metto sul mio. Ce l'ho già dentro la SD.
Perché dopo mi devi dare la carta.
Ah, vabbè, te la do poi.
Me la dai? No, grazie. No, mi stai attento che va quello giusto, questo qua.
Okay, if I leave my computer here?
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem for me. Ah, la luce va bene anche senza il flash.
Ma sì.
Poi ci mettono.
Ma sì, ma benissimo.
Non lavori questi, non sposti.
Ho messo questo nuovo menu.
Le zebre?
Questo menu nuovo.
È la prima volta che fai live streaming, a me puoi dirlo. Mi ha causato, mi ha impressionato, te lo ripeto, Adrian la lavora. Come detto Gianni, quella volta che Adrian è venuto a fare questo studio shoot, fate i cazzi suoi tutto il giorno. Ho detto, ma se mi dice sai lavori passameli, passameli, cazzo su. Se non li sai fare, primo, e quella, quando è un'occasione di imparare non hai voglia di imparare, cioè,
Yeah, complicated.
cioè voglio dire.
Swipe from the middle to the center, to the edge.
Quelle dita brutte. Magari non è attivata lo swiping.
Oh, yeah.
Sony sono proprio le camere del cazzo.
Da che?
Se volete ritratti qui
Ah, e sono spariti?
sono qui. Più di quello non so cosa dire, più di chiedere. collegato con l'XLR, perché accendi anche il microfono della macchina?
Non sono collegato all'XLR.
Mi sono sicuramente.
Ah no, sicuramente con questo. Però per risparmiare batteria adesso sul microfono sto usando il microfono della macchina.
Poi l'attacchi quando...
Ancora inizia sta roba?
Quanto gli piace la plastica in Italia? Come vende le
Anche quella serie TV su Netflix. No, quella online non farsi beccare. Oh, pensavo fosse mozzarellina invece top. No, mi sono stato lì al nord, veramente figo. Grazie loro.
Vai, come hai fatto?
Uscito Pai, fuori da Pai.
Sì, fuori,
Pai è,
ma avevi il motorino?
Pai è una
Io sono
colonia
stato 2 o 3
israeliana.
volte, poi che merda, Dio.
Una roba, tutti israeliani. Mi ricordo, fa schifo dirlo, ma li conosci dal naso. Tutti col naso. Ok. Però esci da Pai, poi è bellissimo. Ho fatto un pezzo del My Song, My Home
Penso un
Song.
loop. Io l'ho
Fatto con la-
fatto in macchina, di quanto l'ho mai fatto? Tranquillo, c'è un cazzo di niente. Sì, non so perché non l'hai fatto in moto, perché se lo faccio in moto con fronte
Sono stato a quel villaggio Bacca... Baccai, come si chiama? Quello che è cinese.
ma la se vai giù dal villaggio c'è un bel lago con tutti i pinguini, come in America, c'è stato.
Sono stato uno vicino,
C'è Marrattà, poi ce n'è uno che mi gira a destra, mi pare, poi è questo cazzo di lago, con i
sono stato
pinguini.
a dormire, veramente figo, aperitivo.
Vorrei andare adesso, che adesso è il mese giusto, adesso non
Adesso lo perdo, perché
poi diventa, sì, no, poi, no, fino a gennaio non c'è. Sai che c'è l'aria sporca qua? Io
170.
venerdì sera ho guardato un po' di TV, poi è stato a vedere la doccia, sempre che è scolato. visto che i giovani gli piace scattare con lo schermo così a telefono.
infatti.
Io lo odio, proprio lo odio.
Yep.
Non gli piace. Prenditore tech questi. diverso, no? Non
Sì.
gliene frega niente.
Amo ChatGPT
Te ne
per
sei
queste
reso
cose.
conto?
Eh?
Te ne sei reso conto?
Sì, sì. Ho incontrato come si chiama lui? La Palanieri.
Io avevo ho un sito di tutte foto editoriali e che non l'ho mai curato, non ho mai le storie che dovrei aggiungere. Sicuramente detesto mettere il computer con quella roba lì. No, mettere le foto, sistemare. Perché non può farlo nessuno per me, quello perché devi scegliere.
Starting to get a bit full, but it could be like from one moment to another because the sun starts at 1. Yeah, I know, it's very... you know this week is Devcon? Yeah.
Big event this week.
It's called Devcon. It's a developer conference. Mostly like Ethereum people coming, but we also see like other ecosystems, like some Bitcoin people also.
IT.
Yeah, it's like tech, but for using like blockchain technology. So everything, all the people involved come to see speakers, events, stories,
Where is the
workshops.
main event?
The main event is in Queen
Queen
City.
City Kid, right?
Yeah. And then there's almost 12,000 people just came from that event. And then there's 800 side events.
They asked me to do it, but
Yeah. It's a lot.
7 days, 12 hours a day.
Too much. Yeah. And then there's 800 side events. So some people don't pay to go to the conference because it's expensive or they don't want to sit, they just come to the side event. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we do is you will hear more about it.
Everybody looks very hipster. I have got no idea.
You will hear more
I
about
still
it,
pay
but,
cash.
Right. Basically, it's infrastructure.
Okay.
The team is building like a new way of doing
Transaction.
blockchain and yeah, making transactions smart and context aware. So like it will only make the transaction if it meets what you tell it to do. If it doesn't, then you won't.
Well, we will not go through.
And you won't lose money.
big city. It's nice. I don't mind it.
Right, right.
It's good. You like it?
Yeah, so far I enjoy it. Of course, as you say, like you gotta be in different areas to experience something different. So yeah, I've done
Big city.
a little bit of everything, but crazy big.
Where are you from in Colombia?
I'm from Cali, but I grew up in Bogota and other cities. Are you also Italian?
Vivido muchos años en España.
Ah, bueno, también hablas español.
You should start a company here.
Yeah.
Sí, right, right. It's a production.
Wow. We're actually from very
Similar
close by,
area.
Where?
the north of Italy.
Like, what is it called?
Dolomites, you know?
I haven't been, but
Venice.
okay. Close to Venice.
Veneto.
Veneto. Okay, I've been in Treviso.
Land of wine, Treviso, near Treviso.
And Trento, that is.
Okay,
You like it?
Good
food, good wine.
So I went because I wanted to go to the Benetton Research Center.
Ah,
They have like a
Call,
communication.
Fabrica.
Still a thing? Still open?
Still, I know, right? You would
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
it's
still
still
open.
open. And it's a bit controversial too because they do like a residency, but only until you're 25 you're allowed to apply.
Yeah.
And like it's really good program, but I've heard also like it's a bit like very selective. And,
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Interesting.
The photographer who used to work for Benetton is very sick. Oliviero Toscani.
Yeah, but it's also like 90s.
Super old, right?
He's very sick. You got more people coming.
Yeah, we really hope. I mean, with these events, so 650 people signed up.
Wow.
But out of those 600,
Even if you get half, it's good.
right?
I mean, they're not gonna fit 300 people anyway.
But usually it's like
And we need more people because taking pictures also, everybody's very self-conscious.
exactly. We'll see. Let's hope people come because there's so much going on. Like
Yeah.
if you see the calendar, it's like crazy. I was so impressed with the convention center. It's new.
Oh, it's new.
Like I walked and it has like shopping.
Big city kid. They renovated 2 years ago. It's insane.
I mean, the whole area is really good with the park and stuff.
Right, super
quelli dovrebbero essere molto buoni, cioè c'è tutto. Li tieni lì 10 anni.
Sì, anche questi, i primi due che hai visto, devi tenerli almeno 6, 7, 8 anni.
Ho letto un bel libro, ce l'ho mano, si chiama Smarter Investing. Per investire e lui dice l'idea è quella che tu guardi quello che fai una volta all'anno, non cosa devi stare bene ogni volta, perché io non so cazzi io. E poi diceva l'unica roba che devi fare ogni anno è ribilanciare il portfolio, quindi se hai deciso che vuoi 60 azioni, 40 obbligazioni, se si sbilancia ribilanciarlo. Ho detto, e tenerlo comunque, non panicare,
Da quello che questi orari che ti fanno,
per esempio la Tesla è andata su un sacco, ma ieri è crollata da perché
ma non rimane.
ovvio che non rimane.
Poi devo dire la gravità.
No, ma
io
per me rimane su, anche più su, però non così.
io sto cercando anche pacchetti che siano un pochettino decenti, se non voglio dare soldi a basta.
Anch'io appunto sul cazzo però
Le rinnovabili per esempio,
io ricordo non ci capisco. Ma leggi questo libro perché ti dà l'idea che non devi andare. Lui dice non cercare di Metamask, di far meglio, perché una volta ce la fai, un'altra volta non ce la fai, quindi alla fine, cioè facendo un ETF o un fondo, qualcosa più così, ma è per quello che alla fine dice il stesso risultato, senza dormi meglio, perché sì, anche lui professionale che si sbaglia, non esiste un fan manager che per 30 anni ha fatto quindi tu che ti racconti per quello voglio dire parlarti bene, bravi le azioni della Tesla va bene, però se hai quell'atteggiamento lì e poi la settimana dopo ne compri un'altra, magari quella crolla, quindi alla fine fai un po' in più e tiri le somme a fine anno, dici se mettevo in un ETF tenevo lo stesso.
per quello che io dico,
Io ho letto il tuo libro, diceva di bilanciare, cioè proprio obbligazioni e che obbligazioni prendere, diceva. E poi azioni, mondo, poi poi il vantaggio sono in euro, ci sono anche tanti fondi in euro, ETF in euro. Poi diceva aziende top per cento qua, poi ti fa 10 portfolio, in base al rischio che vuoi. Il ritorno minimo e massimo e la perdita minima e massima, perché quello che storicamente dipende anche da quando entri, no? Perché per quello lui dice in 20 anni ha fatto l'anno che ha perso di più ha perso X, l'anno che ha perso di meno ha perso X, e dipende da quando entri, no?
poi c'è un rischio ovviamente di esposizione, no? Io ho preso pacchetti che non sono
Però in genere quando va giù tutto, per quello le obbligazioni che ti tengono un po' su. Però il problema è che nell'arco di 20 anni c'è chi magari è entrato qui e uscito qui che ha fatto più 20% all'anno. Chi è entrato prima e uscito al momento sbagliato che ha perso, e quello è con gli stessi prodotti. Faccio due foto giusto per la gloria. Madonna. Quasi, credevo ci fosse il... storicamente è interessante il libro, infatti c'è un fan manager che proprio ha gestito un fondo in Inghilterra dalla fine anni 70 e ha veramente fatto i miliardi, però diceva tanta gente ha comprato il fondo dopo, quando è diventato famoso, e non è che ha fatto tanto bene. Poi questo qui che era veramente Ma magari un bravo tipo.
Magari sì. Magari un mercenario di armi.
Vuole vendere le armi sul blockchain. Esatto. Pisciare prima di
Bella. Salmone fritto freddo.
Scatto tutto in RAW e JPEG,
Devi editarlo?
vi ho detto di sì, ma per queste robe qui ci stai Lightroom un'oretta, Ah, mi prendo allora un MacBook Pro o un Mac Mini? Perché non uno così, cambierò tutto sulla macchina?
Che costa di più?
Quando poi dura 5 anni.
Piace da me, non
Ho
fai tanto.
un iMac e un MacBook Pro io adesso, però entrambi sono un po'... vanno bene per far tutto, perché editing pesanti.
Io prenderei un Mac mini o un nuovo monitor.
Se bisogna di fare... Come...
Prendi l'iMac
Il MacBook Pro lo tengo di emergenza.
per fare on the fly.
Perché se avevo quello avevo tutto su una macchina unica. Perché a volte ho dei file che sono...
Quello vabbè, ma io poi lavori comunque su dischi esterni, quindi sì, non se ne frega.
Se no, perché ho visto che il Mac Mini puoi connetterlo anche all'iPad.
Ma di questo voglio dire.
No, il Mac Mini non è il monitor. Puoi usare l'iPad come monitor del Mac Mini. Quindi volendo puoi portarlo anche dietro se hai bisogno di più power.
Non sono mai fatto quello.
Si può, si può.
USB-C? Ok, può essere. Perché questo lo uso come secondo monitor.
L'HDMI, quindi sai, se vai via per una settimana magari puoi...
No, si sa come portarlo.
100 megapixel che cazzo te la fai per il video? No, quello non capisco. No, 4-3. Cioè, quello che uso venerdì non è un cazzo da fare, non è cosa mia.
Scusami, un secondo.
All good with the sound?
Sorry?
All good with the sound?
We should be okay, yeah.
Okay, let me know if
Yeah,
there's
thank
still.
you.
Hello, Ethereans! Welcome to Smart Transactions House. My name is Boris Mamlyuk. I'm honored and excited to welcome everybody to Day 2 of Devcon, event 32 of 900 in the side events category, and Smart Transactions House, co-hosted by Smart Transactions Corporation, STXN, and Consensys. My name is Boris Mamlyuk. I'm the CEO of STXN, and together with Max Resnick at Consensys, over the next couple of hours, we'll guide you through Smart Transactions House as a metaphor for what two teams are building with their own approaches, their different methodologies, but as Ethereans under the same roof, building towards the same objective, making Ethereum stronger, easier to use, and more impactful for the lives of billions of people around the world. Smart transactions as a category in the STXN sense has been around for more than 3 years. Co-founded by Vlad Zamfir and Anuj Das Gupta, the idea was to put the power of smart contracts into individual Ethereum transactions. As you'll hear over the course of the next couple of hours, that seemingly simple insight led to a couple of foundational breakthroughs, not only in L1 consensus mechanisms and politics and governance, but also in terms of the usability and utility gains it opened up for dApps. Along the way, there were a couple of major questions that came up, which is, how do we think about smart transactions infrastructures through the existing prisms of public and private blockchain politics, public and private mempool politics, public and private chain and pre-chain politics. So we all know that in May of this year, Consensys and Metamask announced a smart transactions toggle within Metamask, which is live, which is super exciting, which posited as a problem and solution statement the following problem. About 15% of existing Metamask transactions fail. If you toggle the smart transactions toggle, you get transaction inclusion rates of 99.5%, but at what cost? Is this a private transaction flow, or is this going to be going through a public mempool infrastructure? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Those are the questions on the lips of Ethereans. Those are the questions on the minds of STXN. Related corollaries. How do we expand Ethereum transaction semantics in a way that makes it easier for developers to pioneer new use cases, while simultaneously giving them security guarantees of level 1 Ethereum? So, over the next couple of hours, we're going to dive into these topics. We're going to look at this house from the basement, peeking into different floors and closets. We're going to have demos of smart transactions in the STXN sense. And by the end of the day, I hope we'll arrive on the roof where we can look out at the expanse and imagine together not just what we're building, but much more important, who it is we're building for, and who are the builders that are going to help us get there. With that out of the way, I'm very excited to welcome Max and the Consensys team to kick us off with smart transactions. Max?
Thanks to the Smart Transactions team for having us here. We're excited to co-host this event. When we started off on this Smart Transactions journey at Metamask, it was actually before I was even at Metamask. It was a recognition that users on Metamask were not currently getting the best experience. There were areas that if you had specialized knowledge and understanding of the supply chain, you could provide them with clearly objectively better results. You could protect them from malicious actors in the dark forest of MEV. And so that was a recognition even before I was at Consensys. And shortly thereafter, Consensys acquired SMG, which is where I was, and brought in that expertise to use our knowledge of the supply chain to help users. And so we had there's several different approaches here. We have our own approach, which I'll talk about later in a keynote. But I think the ultimate goal of smart transactions for everyone is how can we provide the best experience for users? And that comes in a number of different formats, but one of them is how do we stop reverts? How do we protect users from malicious MEV strategies? And how do we help users avoid other kinds of uncomfortable situations like nonces getting stuck, canceling transactions? So all of these things are things that we built into our smart transaction system, and excited to be here to chat about these things today.
All right, thank you so much, Max. So right now, I'd like to invite our dev team from STXN to come on the stage, and let's talk about the smart transaction house that we're building at STXN. Let's welcome everybody up on the stage. In true Ethereum fashion, this DevCon is the first time we've actually met one another face to face as a team. We're a globally distributed team, We've been working very, very hard and super excited just to show what we've been cooking. I'll hand it off to Anuj Das Gupta, our co-founder, who can tell us more about STXN.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Anuj Das Gupta. Vlad Zamfir and I founded Smart Transactions. We have been researching the space of MEV over 3 years and realized last year how we can actually implement some of our research in terms of building an infrastructure that allows for applications to benefit from better experience, both in terms of MEV, but also in terms of end user experience. So to showcase that, we have 2 demos that we want to show everybody. The first demo, we are calling it Smart Swap. It's basically a way of showing you what you can do already with swaps, but in a way that has some smart features, and we'll explain what those are. The second one is a clean app. That is an end-user facing app that you can download on your iPhone or your Google Android. And it's an application where you can do any kind of reporting of hazard, and it's a marketplace for reporting hazard, and responders respond to that. Just like you do in a swap, it's a marketplace. It's also a marketplace, but a different use case, but it's a marketplace. So without talking less about it, let's just get to the demo.
Yep. So for the first, hi, I'm Rish. I am the R&D engineer at STXN. So I've been working on the demos for the last few months. So I finally get to show them to you. So I'm very excited for that. So the first POC demo that we have for you guys is, it might look like a simple transaction, but it's not actually. So just keep an eye for the detail. So here we have an example of a limit order where Ravi can explain what he's doing. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Ravi and I'm the front-end software developer at STXN. So I'll be showing you the first, our POC, which is Smart Swap. Here I'm placing a limit order for 1 WETH at the price of 9,500 DAI, and slippage I'm keeping it to 1%, and the time limit I'm setting it to 2 minutes. Here I'll just submit the transaction. Okay. So I have placed the transaction, and now just for the sake of the demo, I'll be changing it to 9,500.
So yeah, since it's a limit order, we need to update the price. So for the purpose of this demo, we'll be quickly updating the price so that you can actually see it through. So keep an eye on the balances. So the transaction, and Ravi, please show the status as well of the transaction. So yeah, it's still running, it's pending. Yeah. Check the prices now. Yeah. So the balance of the wallet got updated. So it might look like a very simple limit order transaction to you, but it's actually, if you keep an eye on the detail, the values that we specified, there was the price that we specified, there was the slippage that we specified, and the transaction did not go through. So what really happened here is that there is another player in the picture who is working along with the user's objective. So the user comes to the UI and they specify what they want to do. They want to buy a WETH, and they specify at what price they want to buy the WETH, and then they also specify what is the slippage that they'll be expecting. And then there's another player called Solver, which is observing what the user wants to do, and then the solver is responsible for setting up that stage for the user's intent so that it can be achieved. So in this example that we just showed you, what the solver did was they took some liquidity, it's a just-in-time liquidity, it loaded that liquidity to the pool so that the slippage does not go beyond 1%. So to make sure that the slippage is limited to 1%, the solver identifies that, okay, to achieve this, we need to have some more liquidity in the pool. So it takes a flash loan, it adds it to the pool, it executes the user's objective of buying the WETH at that particular price, and then it withdraws the liquidity and returns the flash loan. So all of this happened in one single transaction here in what you saw, and which is why we are calling it a smart transaction, because the transaction is context aware, and then it is also ensuring the requirements of the user. So all these things that the user has specified, the price that they want and the slippage percentage that they have specified, is getting verified on chain. So it's not like a value which is read on the back end and the solver at its convenience can do whatever they want. Everything is verifiable on chain, the slippage, the price, and everything. And going forward with the POC 2, we'll extend it further, not just a DeFi, we'll show you how we can extend this infrastructure to other applications as well. For that, I'll let Eugenie take over.
Great. Thanks a lot, Rich. So, let me bring you guys into the world beyond DeFi, actually, and show how other applications from which are pretty far away from DeFi initially can benefit from the smart transactions power. Okay, so we are working on timing. As the huge part of smart transactions is actually everything which is related to timing. What is one obvious use case of timing? Actually, scheduling. If your application wants to schedule some thing that it should actually do by certain time, then there is just traditional way when we can have it, for example, on cloud, have a sort of pub sub or Kafka at Google Cloud or Amazon Web Service and so on, or any cloud. But it could be actually done in the decentralized way on a chain, on blockchain. So, as an example, I want to present Cleanup, which is actually an open source protocol for global reporting of waste and hazards. We are talking about waste on the street, any kind of broken things that could be dangerous for people, anything. And yeah, sure, Boris will now present Cleanup a bit more.
Just one minor point, the QR code up top is a download link, so if you want to follow along, please go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, great, thanks Boris. Okay, so for now we can demonstrate the power of smart transactions on certain application. So, you see that this is actually application. Now I am creating some mess. Let me just do that. I'm just putting a sort of waste, a sort of litter on the floor, and I want to report it. I am just doing report, and let's see what's going on the application actually. So you see that there is one account and one kitten. It means that the report has been actually acquired by smart transactions, and the reporter should get one kitten. Kitten is our token, like cleanup token, and the reporter should get it on their account actually. It's actually me in this case. Okay, and the schedule is every 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes, smart transactions get collected reports and just dispersed it to accounts of who actually did these reports. If any one of you guys who actually got a cleanup application does report now, you will see it there.
So basically, what we did was we used the same infrastructure of matching swaps that we showed the previous one, but use it for a very different use case. So here, what we matched was the report that there is a trash on the floor. What will it be matched with? With somebody in the world who are using the Cleanup app could respond to it, just like when you are on Grab, you can report, I want to have, I don't know, some pad thai. And somebody could report saying, I can offer you a pad thai, a restaurant or whatever. So this idea of matching, this is why the kitten you see, that we tokenize this very report in such a way that in the bundle, somebody else who is providing the response, also tokenized, will be put in the same bundle. So it's imagine cow swap, except the want of coincidence of wants are all kinds of wants, not just I want this coin versus that coin, but it could be I want, like a marketplace, I want this to be cleaned, and somebody could be responding, I'm here to clean this thing.
Yeah, and just as a data point, if you're a dev and you're thinking about this specific problem that we're trying to solve, the on-chain scheduler that Evgeny described, it seems again like a really straightforward, simple problem, but it's actually it unlocks a lot of really complicated nuances. So this is a problem that has been in the Ethereum ecosystem. There's an ETH research forum post asking specifically this question: how to do arbitrary airdrops to a growing user base of players, and how to do so in an on-chain fashion. And yes, and the scheduler.
Yeah. By the way, you are seeing that it's actually reset to 0. It means that this one kitten has gone to my account actually. And if we get next reports during this time period, they will also go to reporters' accounts at the end. And I want to talk a bit more about on-chain scheduling. The point is that smart transactions actually schedules actually taking over all schedule on it, and doesn't do any kind of side scheduling. So it means that the user application, in this case cleanup, actually sets the scheduling to, like in this case 3 minutes, it could be like 5 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, whatever. And it's guaranteed that it will actually disburse exactly tokens that were submitted by reporters, and some side activities. So it's actually the user can fully trust smart transactions. It's done fully on chain. It's not like something that could be like done from outside in this case.
Yeah, so two of the pointers that needs to be highlighted here is one that Eugenie already mentioned, that everything that we are scheduling is being scheduled on-chain. It's not an off-chain cron job. The job of dispersal is visible on-chain. It's the solver that triggers it, and the user is always assured that if the job has been scheduled, they will get the tokens. Another point here is that the set of values, for example, if the job is scheduled for every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, all the report that gets generated in that 10 minutes, if you want to provide the data about that during the time of execution, that is also one of the powers of a smart transaction, is that you can provide data. It can be anything, it can be prices, it can be values. In our case, it's the list of users and the amount of tokens that needs to be dispersed, and it is provided just in time, in the MEV time, during the execution. So even if the job is scheduled, the data related to it is provided during execution. So that's something that we have done, and this is something that can be extended to multiple applications. Maybe Anuj can expand on that when he talks about it.
Yeah. So this idea of MEV time, that before MEV, the interaction with the blockchain used to be every 12 seconds, more or less. But what we realize, and this is what we call MEV time, is that the interaction that the solvers can have in terms of transaction execution, in terms of picking up the price, picking up the data, could be real time as late as the transaction executes. So for example, in this case, the solver is actually getting the photo of this particular report at the moment when it is done. It is not being batched and scheduled and the solver is getting. So the solver is literally solving the problem of finding the best match for this, but at runtime. Like in the previous example, the same idea was of real time when we did the flash loan, because we didn't want to have the liquidity come before. So the entire perspective is in terms of timing, that we want to execute and get the data, be it price, be it how much tokens to give, as late as possible, so the data is updated and it is really granular.
Yeah, and just to up the stakes a bit, lest anybody think that we're just talking about a litter reporting app. If you download the app, you see it opens directly to camera. I see Consensys team chuckling in the back. Please, 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 with love, with respect, with Ethereum peer-to-peer yeah, just respect. Please realize this same app that opens the camera can be thought of as a WikiLeaks on-chain and incentivize WikiLeaks on-chain because it opens the camera and it's incentivizing the report of any waste or hazard that a user thinks needs to be taken care of. It's a spotlight app. Scale it globally and put those processes, put those incentive mechanisms on chain, put those reports themselves on chain, put those schedulers on chain, and you have a truly permissionless, censorship resistant, unstoppable application that changes society.
And just going from there, we have only 1 minute left, but any doubts, questions, suggestions, comments from anybody here? Yes.
So I'm not convinced that people in halfway around the world should know about the trash in my backyard. I want to incentivize a set of participants around me who I interact with, who I have high bandwidth repeated interactions to increase the frontier of cooperation. So how do you think about nested networks of cooperation, and instead of having all this information on a global chain, but having it shared partially and plurally to the set of participants around me who I want to engage more, and say not fully privatize the functions of public of nearby public good problems.
Amen. Amazing question. And a corollary, what happens if you want to take a report of some waste or some hazard, but you inadvertently take a photo of your kid, and the report is now permanently on chain. So obviously there needs to be reversibility on user-defined terms, on Ethereum-defined terms. And the short answer to that question is the point that Rish made and that our team is faithful to as Ethereans, and that is clean app, and Yevgeny made the point, 100% open source, front end, back end. And so we're committed to working to make sure that the smart transactions are serving us as users, as Ethereans first and foremost, and doing so in a transparent fashion. So substantively, absolutely agree with that. The point is well taken, and the need for that and the need for that scalability couldn't be harder.
I mean, from a wallet perspective, what we have there is the cleanup is also kind of a wallet. So the idea of smart being that you can actually add parameters on your, like, for example, on most apps that you want to find local people, you can see the range you want. You can put like kind of parameters like, I want this location, I don't want these neighborhoods to see, I don't want person with, like, if you want to look at how many kittens people have, less than certain kittens, they didn't do any kind of responses. So you can put, and the actual data of the picture while the solver processes it is not stored on chain. So it is stored based on, like I'm in Europe, based on the GDPR regulation. So if you need to, you have to be able to retrieve the data, remove the data, proof will be there, but actual data will be removed. So those things are taken care of.
Two things. One, y'all should throw a referral code up there. Two, it wasn't obvious in the app, but are you stripping out all geo data when someone's posting this? Because if you want it to be towards WikiLeaks, a lot of basic users may not know how much personal information they actually are posting when they put a photo somewhere, and like reversible information on a photo somewhere. So it didn't look like that was being done in the app, and I would definitely add that.
I can answer actually. Almost zero personal information. The user doesn't put any personal data by default. The only thing that the user can put is their avatar name, and the user can think about completely their own avatar name and
metadata encoded into an image, not like someone typing their address, but most image files have like your location, the phone it was shot on, maybe the phone serial number depending on what's going on.
Absolutely, and this is the decentralization and publicity arc, the spotlight arc that we are following as a team as well. So as Ethereans, as people that use these tools on a daily basis, we need to make sure that we have strong privacy guarantees. And so we're committed to doing that, and the code is open source. We're challenging the community to cast the spotlight on us and to work with us to make sure that we have those strong security and privacy guarantees. It's fundamental. And a shout out to our co-founder Vlad Zamfir, who just arrived. If you want to join us on stage, Vlad, and say a word or two about smart transactions, this is our keynote time. But Fabrizio, you had a question?
Basically, I always think about incentives, right? I have a very simple question. If I understood correctly in the demo, you get rewarded when you report something, and you also get rewarded if you actually help fixing the problem. Is that correct?
Right now, it's only the first step. In later iterations, it'll be the
So in
the
very
latter.
simple terms, what does prevent me to actually vandalize this whole room, take pictures of everything, and actually get paid for that? And maybe in the next step, I can also clean it up and profit twice.
Right now, nothing. So if you're
Fantastic.
watching this on live stream, go ahead and submit as many spam and malicious reports as you think you can. There are two limitations on that in real life. One is it's psychotic to do that, to tip over dumpsters just to submit cleanup reports and earn kittens. The second check is the power of smart transactions, reversibility on user-defined terms. And so just to close, if you are vandalizing, and if the crowd figures out that you're vandalizing, then your rewards should be stripped. We should be able to go back and claw them back. And the big trillion-dollar question is how to do that on chain in a way that's fair, in a way that's provably fair.
The reason why I ask this is because I know it's psychotic, but I also know that it's very remunerative. And as a matter of fact, people are actually doing that in my city. So people in the beginning were cleaning publicly, and they would basically just have a thing with offers saying, hey, if you like the fact that I'm taking care of the streets, pay me. When this business started getting remunerative, you could see them at dawn bringing their own trash, trashing the whole street, and then, cleaning it up so that, the more it looks dirty, the more you get remunerated when you do. So that's why I'm asking.
Not to be cheeky, but what tool would you use to report that waste that was just created? Drumroll, cleanup.
I mean, actually, I agree with you, Fabrizio, completely. Couldn't agree with you. So the two things. The one is that, so initially, right now we have reporters. Then we have also responders. The third kind of actor, which is reviewers. So the idea of reviewers are two things. So it's kind of like a Venn diagram with these three, So what the reviewers do is they try to see reports are spam or not. And what the reviewers do, they try to see the responses are fraud or not. So reviewers could be just, like responders could be like lying about it. So what you said exactly happened. So, I mean, just a little sidetrack. So this, what we did in the cleanup is a more general purpose matching. And this is so the product is not cleanup, rather the underlying thing. And these three, the tokenomics is a challenging thing. I couldn't agree more. So for example, even on centralized app like Uber or Airbnb, there are ratings, kind of pseudo tokenized or centralized BSBS. Works, sometimes doesn't work. So it's a working problem. The idea is that there will be the case of constantly shifting tokenomics that we have to figure out what works, what does not work. So yes.
I just want to build on Fabrizio's point. So what he's raising is actually an enforcement problem, right? And that goes to my original point. If you are encouraging information, right, solicitation and elicitation, then what this ends up doing to solve Fabrizio's problem, you end up having this kind of like incentive for surveillance, right? Because everybody's just reporting on everybody in a global information commons. And that actually the only way to solve that enforcement problem is through surveillance, and we don't want that. So to actually push the enforcement down to the set of participants to who that information is, in my opinion, does require some expressivity on, I don't want to say proof of personhood because I don't like that, but social identity, right? And so I fundamentally disagree with the idea of creating incentives to push all this information into a global protocol and inviting a bunch of participants in a remunerative way, rather than actually pushing the enforcement problem down to the set of participants to it affects, right?
Absolutely. And so if we imagine a global system that has nested protocols, so a global protocol where on Ethereum defined terms, if you want your data to end up in that public global map, to cast a global spotlight, you should have a right to as an Ethereum. If you want that data to stay in your local enclave, you need to have that right, and the protocol needs to respect it. And so your approach of nested, local community, grassroots protocols within protocols absolutely makes sense. It's an extremely difficult issue to code, as you know, and that's where smart transactions, that's the big unlock that STXN is enabling. And again, we're at very early pilot stages. If you take a look at the app, it's a very lightweight implementation, but it's already doing on-chain stuff that wasn't possible before. And so a key takeaway with the time that's closing for our keynote and demo, the key takeaway that we urge you to take with you from Smart Transactions House is we have just opened up utility on Ethereum that wasn't possible before. We've got a couple of additional really high stakes announcements that we're looking forward to making. But for now, we just want to thank you for your excellent questions. Thank you for helping to turn the EM wonder into the EVM wonder. And we'll pass the mic off to Team Consensys to hear about smart transactions in the consensus sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
everyone. Hope we had a good quick break. Keynote here, talking about our version of smart transactions, why we think they're important, and some of the metrics that we've seen so far as we've rolled this out to our users. So this is about Metamask smart transactions, which we rolled out earlier this year and is now available for all users on the latest version of the Metamask extension and on mobile as well. It's you're free to opt out of it. It's a fully optional feature. So first, let me talk about SMG, which is my team. We were acquired about a year ago by Consensys to lead R&D division, an advanced skunkworks type division within Consensys, where we work on very specialized projects that have to do with things that touch the chain, like as close as possible to the chain. So we work on all kinds of problems in that field, but the biggest one that we're working on so far has been smart transactions. Our background is mostly in mechanism design, research, and in the transaction supply chain of Ethereum. So we've written quite a few papers on the specifics of the MEV transaction supply chain on Ethereum. We were acquired in 2023 to bring those insights to the benefit of MetaMask users. So what do our smart transactions look like? So we launched in May. We keep user transactions private as opposed to sending them into the public mempool where they can be preyed upon by malicious actors. It prevents front running, and it also allows us to keep more control over the transaction to provide better user experience. So we can do things like have users land on chain with higher success rates because we simulate all transactions through our internal feature called Sentinel. So every transaction that's submitted through smart transactions is simulated just in time at the top of the block to make sure that it doesn't fail. So we've seen 1,000x lower revert rate for our smart transactions relative to what they were with public mempool transactions. And you can see that here. We wrote a query which was for each user account, we looked at the 30 days before they turned on smart transactions and then the 30 days after they submitted their first smart transaction. And as you can see, the cost for users in terms of total cost in ETH of transaction reverts is actually in the kind of 20s of ETH per day before, and then after it's nearly zero because we simulate those transactions before we submit them directly to the supply chain. Another thing that we were able to accomplish was protecting users from malicious MEV in the mempool. So Jared from Subway is not too happy about this, but we were able to lower the percentage of smart transactions affected by sandwich attacks down to just, and you can see what that translates into in terms of the total cost to users from sandwich attacks per day before and after with a similar type of query where we looked at the per account basis. So that's where we're at today. We're pretty excited about the benefits that we've given to users so far, but there's more we want to do. We want to enable these. Right now it's only on Ethereum. We want to enable these on other EVM chains like Polygon, like Avalanche, like Monad in the future, and also on rollups like our own Linea and other rollups like Arbitrum, Base, OP Stack in general, ZK Sync, etc. So we're looking at that in the very near future, rolling out this feature to other chains. We're also looking at gasless experiences. So we want to make transacting on MetaMask and on chain as easy as possible. And part of that means abstracting gas away. We have teams that are working very closely on gasless experience right now, and it's in the early testing phases. Another thing we're working on is better multi-chain experience. So this is one of the things that we think is core to our strategic roadmap for the next 5 years, is to make sure that switching costs between new chains and rollups are as low as possible. And that is going to turn us into a virtuous version of the L2 roadmap where there are more L2s, they're all competing with each other on user experience and price. And our goal is to reduce the switching costs as much as possible and make that interoperability as seamless as possible with what we can do on the Metamask side. So we've shipped a new multi-chain experience in the last month. We're continuing to work really hard on that as well. That kind of feeds into the smart transactions workflow. And the final thing, we have several teams working on intents and account abstraction. And this is one of the things that Dan Finley, who's a founder of Metamask, is really excited about and is personally looking into. And we have a lot of interesting stuff that I can't necessarily share today, but I think we're going to be sharing at some points in the future on intents and account abstraction that are super exciting as well. Okay, that was all I had. I think it's a quick little look at what we've done so far. I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves. We had way lower sandwich attacks. We had way fewer transaction reverts. And the other thing that I guess we didn't put in this presentation is that we have other types of UX benefits for users. So nonce management has been a huge problem in the past on MetaMask. We have whole teams dedicated to helping users get their transactions unstuck on chain. And this allows us to have more control over that nonce management and transaction replacement. It allows us to give users the ability to make dynamic gas strategies to escalate their gas over time in case there are periods where gas fees are escalating. And the final thing is it allows users to cancel. So you might submit your transaction to the public mempool, and each slot is 12 seconds. If you submit 3 seconds into the slot, you now have 9 seconds where your transaction is not in a block, but it's very hard to cancel. And with smart transactions, we're able to manage that pipeline and submit it at the right time to allow users maximum flexibility in terms of canceling their transaction. And finally, we're able to allow users to set a concrete limit on the number of blocks it will take for their transaction to land. So in the rare case that it does fail, they at least know that 10 blocks later they can resubmit right away. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks for listening to me chat about smart transactions.
All right, thank you everybody. Thank you very much, Max. We'll take another short break and then we'll line up our fireside chat. Thank you. everybody. Welcome back. I'd like to invite now our Fireside panelists, Rick Dudley, Vlad Zamfir, and Anuj Das Gupta. Please join us on the stage. And everybody, please give a warm welcome to our panelists.
It's been a while. Yeah, it hasn't been that long. It feels that way?
All right, so we heard from STXN and STXN's take on smart transactions. We heard from Consensys and Max's introduction that Consensys smart transactions, Metamask smart transactions toggle channels transactions to a private mempool. And so maybe a opening question would be, how do these two approaches relate to one another? What are the commonalities between these two approaches in your view?
Well, so they're sort of composable because you can't really check if you're in a private mempool. You can't validate whether you're in a private mempool. It's just like privacy. You can't really validate it from the EVM, and so it's like a service that has to be provided separately from like the transaction's own awareness context. However, you can be in a specific mempool with like specific providers that like you require signatures from, and that could be almost there, So just in terms of like what's verifiable from the EVM, you can't really check if your EVM execution is private. So it's sort of like a different layer or a different part of the stack.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that last bit. You can't really it's very difficult to verify the privacy. And without some sort of commit reveal or threshold encryption or something like this, you have to trust people that they're private. But the reality is most users aren't that sophisticated, period. So if someone like Consensys says these transactions are private, as long as there isn't like credible evidence that they're not, I mean, that's basically the best most users can do.
And even about the verification, which Rick also correctly pointed out, even beyond the fact that they are not sophisticated, there's not enough incentive for users who are not like big traders. We're not just spending a few cents here and there to run a node and check everything, because it's just not worth it. So this is why even if there are ways to check it, like you make it possible for users to check it, they wouldn't have enough. Like the cost of checking and verifying would be much more than the benefit you would get at the end of the day. So yeah, it doesn't even work economically speaking.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is very expensive. I mean, I do run infrastructure that would facilitate that type of checking. And so I can say with confidence that it is, if you're losing even, a slippage of even like $500, if you're experiencing like that every month or something, which seems like a lot for a normal person, you're well within, you need to be a large-scale trader to really feel the pain from public mempool transactions, in my opinion.
That leads to centralization on both sides. Also from the user side, where you have more and more case where users who are just not big traders, they drop out. And on the other side of the service providers, you have more and more like solvers and other private mempools who have more and more. So basically you have order flow centralization on the other side. So you have centralization on both sides, and you don't want that. So.
If we think about smart transactions in very high level terms, putting the power of smart contracts in individual transactions, how does that relate to existing infrastructure layers and discourse around intents, pre-confirmations, 7702? Vitalik, I think, in 7702 described it as putting the power of smart contracts in individual transactions. So just curious how you would situate these developments from the Consensys side, from the STXN side, to the existing prior art and state of the art.
Sure. So a lot of these examples boil down to running some code, at the end of your transactions execution, checking if something's the case, and then reverting. And that covers everything except for the pre-confs. In the pre-conf case, you sort of, we do have a smart transactions solution for it, where you verify a signature from the proposer. And I'm not sure sort of how that fits in with the existing just existing pre-conf projects. But long story short, smart transactions aren't just simply running code and checking and reverting, but also they're interacting with each other and with the searcher / solver in a way where there's different timing that happens and different information that can get in. And so it's not just the power of smart contracts. It can do things that smart contracts.
I mean, I would say that there's just a broad marketing problem in the crypto space, right? We're very narrative driven, very meme driven. So I would say, you know, pre-confs, intents, smart transactions are all similar, like from a pure computer science perspective. When you get into the details that Vlad was pointing out, there's these differences, but I think there's just generally such a lack of sophistication in the space around the actual formal computer science, and also this sort of tendency for people to use these terms as shelling points, right? So maybe there's two intent systems that are actually radically different, but they both use the term intent. So like maybe somewhere in the intent memosphere, there are two projects that are actually further apart than smart transactions, right? Like if you look at the graph, right, like smart transactions might be closer to like project B than project A and B are to each other, but A and B have both glommed on to the intent meme and smart transactions is not. So it doesn't really, you don't really know offhand just from those terms. I think pre-confs are a pretty, like, it's an old technique, it's an old technology. The chain that I did analysis on that really had this already was Flow. I mean, and Flow was like pretty kind of old at this point. It's like generations ago at this point. And they don't use that terminology at all. So when you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, I figured out this new pre-conf thing, and you're like, this isn't better than what Flow did, but you don't even know what Flow is, right? So I think a lot of the pre-conf conversation is very confused because pre-conf and a private mempool, these are related concepts. And if you are getting pre-confirmations, that means you're relying on, and this ties in directly with what Vlad's saying, you can't get that guarantee from the Ethereum L1 validator set. So you're relying on some third party to provide that pre-conf guarantee. And it's very difficult to construct. I don't believe that anyone is providing or presenting a pre-conf construction that is economic, has crypto economics associated with it, where if my pre-conf failed, I can be paid on L1, insurance essentially for that failure. I don't think that we have those. So again, it's like, that's something where I think you folks, smart transactions generally just is more precise with their language. So they're not sort of entering into that fray, even though that functionality, the functionality I just described, where you have the economic element to the pre-conf, I'm pretty sure that's possible with smart transactions. And so you could say we have like pre-confs on steroids, but you just don't market that way.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I would say about terminology, I mean, I find intents to be a terribly stupid term because, I mean, when you're building software, I cannot claim I know somebody's mind, and that's not besides the point of building a software. I mean, we are not strings at smart transactions that what's your intent, why do you do something, how does that make you feel? Rather, what is more important, I mean, and you can argue everything in the world we do is, any service you provide is providing a service that caters to somebody's intents, but we don't say that because it's almost a, besides the point, nonsensical, it's a marketing gimmick, that's what it is. And so rather than using intents, which is psychological and which cannot be verified because it's somebody's mind, who even knows what somebody's intent, rather using like more computational terms like objectives of a particular function that somebody does, when you click something on a dApp or a UI or a wallet or something, you have an objective to, I don't know, send money, to receive something, claim something, airdrop, whatever. And that's a clearly, when you say objective, it's based on action. It's something that folks can verify, like we can verify, others on the chain can verify, but intents, I mean, who even knows, and that's not important to be honest. So this is why, exactly what Rick said, like, because it's such a bullshit point, it doesn't make any sense when somebody, apart from the marketing gimmick of course, apart from that, from a computer science perspective, it's better not to use it, I would say.
Yeah. Related, perhaps to the point about marketing terms, within STXN, we use the term time travel and the time machine. And so our white paper, mevolution.io, it's printed on the swag bags, really foregrounds this idea of time chain, going back to Nakamoto, the way that Satoshi framed the blockchain. And the question for the panel is, to what extent is this just a rhetorical gimmick, or to what extent are we actually doing time travel along the blockchain? Not just in the STXN sense, but obviously in the broader Ethereum and blockchain sense.
Well, I'm glad no one else has picked up the time travel lingo yet. So we're in the broader blockchain space. So far, it's just us. I'm sure people will be time traveling soon, but I think it's literally time travel. You could think of it as being sort of virtually time travel, in that the searcher figures out how to make the time travel trace work, so the transactions aren't really traveling through time, the searcher is, and then sort of making them have all these magic coincidences. But from the perspective of the transactions, it's sort of really transactionally time travel.
I mean, from a pure computer science perspective, I would say we have a lot of precedents to using the word time. So it started from the very beginning of distributed systems with Lamport's paper and logical clocks and all that stuff. So this idea of looking at the ordering of transactions as a sense of time virtualized onto a computational scene is nothing new at all. And so what we are doing is using time in that way, where time is in many ways, or rather the virtual time, because when we say time travel, it's not like using our application, you go back yesterday. That does not happen, you're still here. But what happens is the sense of time that is recorded on chain, which is the sense of order of transactions, that does get manipulated, which is not just that, which is like MEV 101. So time travel in terms of this kind of a virtual order of transactions that can be manipulated, that is very much, even pre-blockchain, goes back to Nakamoto and even before Dijkstra and Hoare's work. So that way time travel is accurate, but maybe I realized I made it less marketing gimmicky by talking about all this nerdy stuff. Not sure.
Yeah, I really don't like it. I'm mad every time you guys talk to me about time travel.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Well, I said that, and then I'll say I don't have a better name for it. So there is that. But I do think, just broadly in the space, we have this problem where, there are folks like you folks, and I think myself as well, and many others, we're a small group of people who actually know what's going on and understand the systems and can actually have an intelligent conversation about a blockchain-based system. And then that's like, it must be way less than 1% at this point. The community's grown so large, and the number of these people you don't get a new one every season. So there's very few of us, and yeah, I can read it and get a little grumpy and finish the paragraph and be like, I know why Vlad said time travel. But basically everyone else reading that paragraph is going to say, at the end of that paragraph, is going to say, I have no idea why Vlad said time travel when they're done with that paragraph. Now, part of that is on them, and it's their responsibility as the reader to be educated enough to understand what they're reading. But also, I think the term time travel in particular doesn't help. Now, again, I do think it's a really powerful, philosophically, and also you guys are very philosophically oriented, for better or worse. It's my preference, but it has a lot of downsides. Philosophically, it is a really good way of getting at the concrete feature of just for the people in the audience who might be wondering what time travel is, I will now explain the concrete feature. When you have a block, you have transactions ordered in the block, and the later transactions are dependent on state changes, necessarily dependent on state changes that happen from transactions earlier in the block. What smart transactions allows you to do as a system It allows you to order a transaction higher in the block that depends on a state change that happens later in the block. And this is basically not possible without a solver, and is an extremely powerful feature because it allows you to sort of do, and this is a very abstract notion, right? But it allows you to construct transactions that have dependencies that could not otherwise be satisfied. And I know that doesn't really mean anything to most people, but basically, let's say when you have okay, so it's slight digression. We have this thing in computer science called or mathematics called constraint-based solvers, where you basically give a program a bunch of arbitrary constraints, and then it has to sort of deterministically go through those constraints, or sometimes non-deterministically, and try to solve as many of those constraints as possible. And if you're constrained to transactions that only know about the previous blocks and the previous transactions in that block, which is the default semantics of the EVM, you've greatly constrained your ability to solve and place transactions in blocks. By using this time-traveling metaphor, you've dramatically relaxed the constraints on transaction inclusion in the block, which means you can make more money if you're an MEV searcher. It has a bunch of other benefits as well. So that's what's meant by time travel.
Yeah. Whoa. No. Yes, but you can also use this to build an explicit time machine, you know? Like, it's not just philosophically, you know, because of the dependencies being weird, it's time travel. No, you can you can really make the thing.
What is that thing?
You can think of it as a shorting a call.
Shorting a call.
Yeah.
So for the audience, I guess this is why I'm on the stage. For the audience, give a concrete, just briefly, what is a call? What is a short?
So a short is like this idea that you would borrow an asset you don't have in order to sell it, and then buy it back later. It's like a financial analogy I'm using. And shorting a call would be to receive a call that you haven't sent yet, or that hasn't happened yet, sort of from the future.
Right. But okay, so this is yeah. So you didn't. That's not satisfactory.
Yeah, sorry.
You did not fully satisfy the requirements here.
You mean I didn't explain the analogy well enough?
Yeah. So you could actually use the concrete financial shorting. You can. So again, to translate, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But in this system that you just described, I could sell an asset I don't have in a transaction. Like in transaction 3, I can sell an asset that I don't have until transaction 7, but the transaction that checks whether I have the asset or not is transaction 10. Now there's no way in normal EVM semantics that I could construct something like that, but that sort of system can be constructed using smart transactions.
Okay, yeah, good job.
Thank you, Owen.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, it's interesting because when you said, Rick, that people would just read the time travel and would be like, not be able to verify that. It's not even about not having skills, yes, but it's also about the initial thing that we said previously, which is economics, incentives. Like most people don't have incentive to learn because all you want to do is swap shit coins and make some money.
Absolutely.
So then this is why when we said all that, and the end you said something about like making money somehow. I'm sure many years will be like, oh wait, I should have listened to all these things. What were you saying?
Yes, exactly. We should have said this is a way of making money, and then give the description.
Talk about time travel.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
If you don't know, you would learn it at least.
Yeah. No, it does definitely prime the.
Because the idea is a lot of financial primitives depend on the ordering of things. Depends on like if X happens, then do Y. Like the shorting example he gave. A lot of betting depends on that. Now, is it be possible to make a bet that will be fulfilled in the future in such a way that it will always be fulfilled or it will be rolled back? So it's almost like a better word, atomic bets.
Yeah. And do you folks have any support in smart transactions right now for time travel? I think you do. I think you did talk about it in the paper, time travel across blocks, right?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Evolutionary IO,
Yeah, and this is again one of these things that there's a few of us out here. I remember Ethan Buckman talking to me about this years ago, right? I mean, it's sort of a foregone conclusion for a lot of people who are really thinking through this stuff. But you know, if your folks' paper in smart transactions is the first introduction that someone has to super blocks, whether that's a cross chain or basically coalescing multiple blocks or multiple chains into one block, or taking 5 blocks from a single chain and being able to make guarantees across that set of 5 as opposed to just guarantees in a transaction or the individual block. I mean, these are very powerful primitives. They're like really incredibly powerful primitives that actually really do open up the design space for applications. But I think the challenge in the space broadly is that, I mean, this is sort of a very much a personal aside here. I rarely find people building apps in the space that can understand those types of functions. And I rarely find people building that type of functionality who have any, like you guys don't, I mean, personally, Vlad doesn't care about apps. I mean, Vlad, you know, I mean, like, let's be honest, like it's been almost 10 years. How many apps has Vlad released?
Hey, I care about sharding, okay?
That's fair.
Because before that, apps don't scale, Rick. Would you like an unscalable app?
I would, actually, unfortunately, I would because
I wouldn't.
Because I need an unscalable app to get money. Remember that whole thing about we need to get paid? So
yeah, but
you need,
but you know, you can get money on a scalable app too.
Yeah, but I need to have enough money to live to get to the scalable app money.
Well, with sharding, that would be a faster process.
I completely agree with you, but many of your audience, many of your target customer, the people you want to use smart transactions, want to make money yesterday.
Maybe I'll make it even more vague. I should not, but I will do it. Which is, I told Vlad when I first started learning about MEV years ago, and which will sound weird, is the beginning of MEV is the end of blocks.
Yes.
You know, and it sounds fake, but it is completely true.
Absolutely.
And but the ironic thing, or the unfortunate, or the tragic thing in crypto is that people are either bothered about building the next greatest, best bricks, but nobody wants to build houses. So what we have at the end of 15 years, we have great fucking bricks, but we don't have a nice house that makes so. And the thing is, people who can build some of the apps wouldn't understand how it actually works, and people who understand how it works, for whatever reasons, are not invested in the world of apps. And that's something, that's not smart. I'm talking about smart transactions.
Sure it is. I mean, the apps don't scale. I mean.
Yeah, but you know, waiting for it to scale and then build apps, or building apps and it breaks and creating an economic incentive for folks to then scale.
Just ban apps from layer 1 until it scales.
Like in a centralized way.
No more code allowed until sharding is done.
It's funny because so many people are afraid of that happening. You know, if you read Twitter, people are freaking out about what you just said. They're like, what happens when the foundation stops allowing general smart transactions, not smart transactions, just general Ethereum transactions, it's all L2 transactions exclusively. But we all knew years ago that that's like kind of the only way that Ethereum can actually work, right?
Well, no. I mean, look, we just ignore the apps and we scale it as if there's no transactions.
6 of one, half dozen of the other. But yes, the only way that Ethereum is going to scale, the only way that these technologies are going to meet mass adoption is if yes, it costs you $5,000 to send your raw transaction on the L1. I've always thought that I was totally comfortable with that. People are always like, this is a horrible outcome. I'm like, no, that represents aggregation, right? It means that you have to be aggregating transactions and have scale in order for that to work. And anyway.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, from time to time.
I'm loving this. I'm sure the audience is as well.
Sorry, just one thing. You know, when we talked about the 5 blocks, the super blocks, I didn't want to say it, but I think, what you end up having is kind of not L2, but L1.5.
Yeah.
Because you're never really leaving the chain at the same time. But you're not really in the chain really like it is right now.
Right.
So
it's just like, L1 though. It's just L1.
It's one, because it's like you are scaling not on the space but on the time constraints, because you're able to make assumptions that will be fulfilled not in the same block but in a couple of blocks. So maybe not even L, then some other, I don't know, Z1, 2 or something, like some other axis you need almost to talk about this.
I agree with you philosophically. There's no hope of anyone else ever understanding what the hell we're talking about. So
let's zoom out a bit. So if the rise of MEV heralds the end of blocks, does it also signal the end of time in the following sense? So if we think about technology, Starlink, the constellation, is at the fundamental analysis a clock.
Yeah.
Unix time in computer science is a clock.
Yep.
GPS, GLONASS are clocks. Ethereum, right? So we talked about Nakamoto time chain.
Yep.
Bitcoin was conceived as a clock, a block clock. Ethereum as well. Before we get to time travel, why hasn't Ethereum been able to capitalize on its utility as a clock? Why is that?
I would say it has.
I mean, no, it has.
Yeah, I would say it has. I mean, I would say that, again, these financial transactions have an ordering, and that's where the value comes from. I mean, and also with MEV, right, people are double dipping on the value of the ordering, right? So I think it does function as a clock to some extent. Again, I think what hasn't happened, to your point, is a public appreciation and understanding of how important total ordering really is, and how much, like, a lot of times when you see people like John Charbonneau sort of worrying about all the value moving away from Ethereum and these sort of pundit arguments, I think that they miss this value of total ordering, right? And like, if you don't have that anchor to provide that total ordering, you need that for value accrual. You can't actually have value accrual without this sort of binding along the time axis.
Yeah, I mean, even another aspect of that is that yes, it is a clock. We understand that, but at the same time, in most use cases, at least in a more proper way, the clock happens to remain only linear. Like, folks don't seem to do enough of non-linear hacks. I mean, Flashstone was one tiny example where a little bit we saw, but didn't progress much beyond that. And it's always a tragedy when you have attempts at doing something that is more than just linear, but doesn't really go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental transaction semantics of the EVM are what prevents people from doing that, and I think a fear, frankly, of adding the type of complexity that smart transactions adds. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, and that's why they didn't do it. I mean, it's almost like, well, and again, I mean, some people might call it a skill issue, but I don't think it is. I think if people people complain about the linearity, but that's all they do. All they do is complain. They don't have the courage to actually go and say, okay, well, what can I do to address the constraints of this linearity? Yeah.
Well, I mean, but you said it. It's because the EVM makes it not easy.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to build infrastructure so that over time it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, and I think that's very much a developer tooling issue and a developer experience issue. Like, you guys have the theory, down in multitudes, but the real challenge is are you going to be able to get developers to leverage those tools? And I think it's going to require a lot of guidance. Like, I think you're going to have to build a lot of apps to show people these features and functionalities and get them to adopt the platform. Because basically, eventually you'll land on an app that someone wants to copy and actually commercialize. They'll basically steal your demo, right? You'll give a demo and someone will be like, oh, let me raise $15 million because I just copy-pasted the smart transaction demo. And I think that's a really good outcome.
Yeah, so following that, what is the sort of app that you would want to use that incorporates that smart transactions feature, that block ordering, the way that you described it, that context-aware block magic?
I mean, there's a
swapping tokens.
No, not swap tokens. I mean, yes, swap tokens. Swap tokens make money. Yes, swap tokens make money. Good, but really, I think when you have smart transaction solvers across chains, and a lot of people when they talk about cross-chain intents, and I know everyone hates the word intents here. Okay, but like cross-chain intents. So I think there's actually going to be this huge problem, this huge fight where do we coordinate, where do we provide total ordering across L1s, right? So this is like a real serious question. So like, for example, Coinbase, the exchange, one of their functions, one of the services they provide is a total ordering over L1s. Binance provides a total ordering over L1s, and that's actually what you're paying them for. And there is no DEX that you can pay that will give you a total ordering over L1s.
They have the incentive to do so, of course.
What are you talking about, though? You're talking about their order books, right?
Yeah, I just mean as a service, as a layperson using Binance, I have ETH, I need Solana, I'm relying on, I'm trusting Coinbase to sort all that out for me.
Yeah, but they don't need to know to do that which Bitcoin block and which is Solana block are before and after which other one.
Who doesn't need to know that?
Coinbase.
Well, they do know that by
Binance or whatever.
But when they balance, they take their own discretion to balance at their own discretion. But think about
balance, you mean settle?
Yes, by settle, yes. Thank you, yes, settle. So like think about the times when you're trying to use a centralized exchange and it's gone down because they can't, their nodes have gone down or whatever and they're not getting confirmations, right? That's because eventually it trickles down to the end user that they failed to generate the total ordering that they needed.
And then they catch up and order the blocks vis-a-vis all the other blocks of all the other chains?
Yeah, internally, yes.
No, they don't.
Well, because they have a balance.
But they don't need that to maintain the balance. They don't need a total order of all the chains.
But they necessarily in their books.
Yeah, for each of the order books, but not.
No. I mean the not the exchange function as a service. I mean Coinbase as a legal entity. The legal entity of Coinbase is providing a total ordering to its customers.
I mean, who wants total order of L1 blocks? I don't get it.
People, traders who trade across multiple L1 blocks and have to fill out a K1. When I get a K1 from Coinbase, they're giving me a total ordering that I then present to the IRS, very concretely.
Of your transactions?
Yes.
On the exchange?
Yeah. Yes. Well, and how when those transactions cross chains, those orderings as well.
I'm still very skeptical here.
Yeah. And just to
realize there's a lot of pairings of these blocks across all these chains.
Yeah, and they don't generate it. Again, it's an emergent property. So I agree with you. It is not an explicit thing that Coinbase is doing. But one of the values of Coinbase as a business is it gives me this implicit ordering. So when I fill out a K1, I can fill out my K1. And this is like literally a problem I have. If I tried to fill out a K1 without that, I would have a very difficult time as a human being, because I have to rely on the clock time. I have to go to block explorers and clock time and all this craziness. It's very difficult. People just don't do it. They're just like, I'd rather pay the fine than figure that out.
Crypto payroll companies could do that. We have some people here who have crypto payroll.
We're going to open it up to audience Q&A. Before we do that, just last chance for Anuj and Vlad for a rapid fire answer to that question. What's an app that you're waiting for on the smart transaction stack?
Time traveling trading.
I can't say in one word. It'll take a bit of a time. It's my pet peeve. I would love to see a DAO that pays UX designers to do their work in a way that it becomes illegal for any tech company to pay a UX designer. So UX designers would be throughout the world paid independently by the DAO. So UX designers would no longer care about shareholder value. They would be user value. So they could say, go fuck yourself to their bosses any day, every day, if they see they're asked to design something that is bad for the users. Because right now what UX designers do is like shareholder designer, but not really care for users, because their money is paid by the company. So a DAO to pay designers and making it illegal for companies to pay the designers.
Very nice. Ethereans, let's grill our panel. Pooja, you've been waiting for the microphone. I'm just going to hand it off to you.
Okay, so before I ask my question, I just want to say this is the most fun conversation and interesting one I've heard at Devcon so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a high bar too. So Okay, every decision is made within a context window. I'll give you an example. I sent out a communication yesterday, and then 5 minutes later, my context window expanded, and I was like, abort, delete, right, retract, too late. The recipient, their context window, then was already expanded. I couldn't retract that. So if I understand this time travel thing and the dependencies between blocks and some subset of, maybe top of the block, how does this not end up just making the rich richer and the powerful more powerful because they're the only one in the position to exploit the expanded context window and change their decisions while everyone else is sort of left, who can't afford to do that, right? Not being able to exploit the changes in the context window?
Well, interesting question. I think that question can be applied more generally to the blockchain space as a whole. I think it can be broadly applied to many situations where there's information asymmetry, right? Like the people who have more information have an advantage. I think maybe to try to narrow it down a little bit, I think essentially sort of what you're saying is, and it would be great if you could confirm since I can see you or whatever, but when we make blockchain innovation, broadly speaking, it's not really, it almost always favors incumbents. I mean, that's sort of essentially what you're saying. You're saying that like blockchains are this sort of direct, I mean, I feel like there's sort of a practical answer, whereas you could say like smart transactions will make an effort to like educate people and deploy things and have, public goods, and you could sort of make this argument. But I think philosophically, like theoretically, there's not really a way to stop, I don't believe, what you're describing, right? That requires people outside of this scope. It requires humans to hold other humans accountable outside of what we do as mechanism designers. Did you want to?
I would say, hopefully, magically, if you can have an incentive compatible system where regular users have incentive to verify things, to be empowered, the dream that DAOs had, which completely, we all know token voting, what disaster and a scam it is, but if there are better ways to do that, doing better tokenomics, and one of the tragedies of blockchain is somebody comes up with some kind of token voting as an answer, and now nobody wants to question it, that becomes norm, people do slight modifications to it, but basically the same shit all over again. But instead of doing that, if there's a real app where users have enough like actual incentives to verify things, to run their own mini servers, to host their own services, could be the beginning of something. But of course, as you said, it's not just a problem of blockchain, it's a problem of the society and the world we live in. Blockchain is a kind of reflection of it. So
absolutely, and I think it's a human psychology problem, like ultimately, like we've been building verifiability technology on top of Ethereum for many years, and we've had very few customers, and those customers are argumentative, and they're like, well, what if I just don't verify it? And I'm like, well, why are you talking to me then? Just don't verify it, just go do it and don't verify it. I think it's a very hard thing to surmount.
I will say in this case though, doing multiple cross-block atomicity requires some isolation or replication, and therefore we can revert all of them if one of them reverts, even in a later block. But it's it's an isolated state or replicated state, and then only some of the copies get reverted. So you can imagine that different smart transactions that sort of are executed in the same batch, if one of them reverts, the other ones will revert also. And so as long as that batch is really atomic across blocks, one of them reverting should cascade to all of them reverting. So that should provide some amount of, let's say, unionization between the transactions.
I understood how that was an answer to Pooja's question, but
you did understand.
I did.
Well, so did everyone else.
I'm skeptical.
Transaction unions.
Yes, transaction unions. I mean, that is Vlad's answer to Pooja's question, but I think that there's little incentive for someone to build such.
No, I mean, it's a default thing. If any of the transactions in the like bundle fail, they all revert. I mean, it's just a default feature.
You know, transactions of the world unite.
Yes.
So,
but I don't like. Okay, so you're not just saying the top of the block. You're saying all of the transactions and the transaction unions that constitute it. But as as a context window expands, there's no, and you will have re-coalitioning over and over again in an endless loop. So where is the finality, right?
Well, no, you have to wait.
One second. I mean, if in some way you could argue that you could build a system, and it's very difficult to do that, I will agree, where in this union, a rich person's transaction will be rewarded if a poor person gets fucked over because they're part of the same union. You are kind of making incentive compatible, bringing everybody on the same playing ground. Please go ahead.
So I think this kind of breakage that you described, we actually do see an equivalent thing happen now with very low proof of work chains, where someone will make one of these fly-by-night proof of work chains, and then they stop mining it, and then like all hell breaks loose, right? They have these deep reorgs, they have all sorts of crazy things. But generally what happens in that case is there was value that was accrued to the chain's ordering, and then that value diminished below some threshold, and then chaos ensued. It's not that people engaged in chaos until the value dropped. It's usually some external thing aside from chain activity that caused the value to drop, that destroyed the time on that particular chain.
But yeah, basically there does need to be isolation of these different like unions of transactions. Otherwise, you would get sort of, like you're saying, unbounded revert duration, and that is just very expensive to do.
If you can't have barriers, boundaries around side effects, they don't have isolation. So I'm just realizing the more we speak, the more maybe we're getting abstract. So
yeah, and I wanted to also acknowledge Fabrizio has been waiting with a question. Fabrizio, please.
If you want to continue, please.
We only have 2 minutes for questions left.
Yeah, ask a question.
I just wanted to try to see if like this definition makes everyone agree on the panel, basically. So you talked a lot about time, but to me it seems that the real point here is causality. Causality is basically when you have, in mathematical terms, a partially ordered set of what influences what. Now, I think we all agree that Ethereum, the EVM, is some sort of state machine, right? And what happens is that every time you have a transaction, you specify a bunch of transitions in this state machine, and some state gets rewritten. Now, when two events, two transactions end up rewriting the same portion of state, then you have to establish a priority of some sort. If they don't, then who cares? You don't have to order them until they do. Now, as Rick was saying, there are a lot of constraints, for instance, nonces, that basically force a total ordering in the EVM transaction history, even when you don't need to. Now, to me, it seems that the idea of smart transactions is you specify your transactions. Along with each transaction, you really specify the portion of state you care about and the portion of state you don't care about. In the end, you end up defining a couple of regions in this state set where you say, this is more or less when I want to start from, this is more or less where I want to go. These transactions give me a path to go there, but I am willing to deviate from that path as long as I start and end in the same region. And at that point, what a solver does is basically what is a sort of like principle of least action. It's not really that, because we don't have anything nice enough to do principle of least action on state machines. But what a solver does is, okay, let me find the path that satisfies these constraints, and it's the best one for me if I'm getting a fee or whatever it is. But that seems to me the whole point. You are thinking not in terms of linear type, but in time, but in terms of posets, causality posets, and you are basically willing to say, I do not conform to a fixed history as long as I can have a deviation that doesn't fuck up my outcome too much.
Yes, plus time travel and like retro causality. So,
well, but time travel is basically automatically factored in.
yeah,
in this
but you
project.
get loops. It's no longer partially ordered causal set.
It depends, because the point is, if you have a partial order and you slice it in a way or another, basically the point is, you're like seeing this like in a way, and you say this comes before that, but in the end you can go to another slice and you see it in the opposite order. This is very well known in relativity, but it's not a time loop. It's more like the time linearized.
This is more like a closed time-like curve in relativity. It really is. So
I really hope not for you, because there are a bunch of theorems that tell you you're fucked. If
no, the searchers have to deal with solving these things.
Yeah, the problem is that you can never get out by from a CTC by definition.
Oh yeah, no, but that's fine. I mean, it's just a value. The transaction moves on, a value comes back.
I mean, there's one thing which is like you do have to mention some sort of boundary conditions for the CTC. So based on the boundary conditions, because solvers are not part of the loop, they're outside of that, they can almost collapse their loop, like almost like a fiat. Based on the boundary condition, could be just like a slippage, could be profit, could be some like blacklisted transaction.
Then it feels to me like a fixed point more than a CTC, and that's something that I can very much agree with.
Sure, but you know, a CTC is a fixed point, right?
No, it's something horrible. It's a bunch of partial differential equations that let you cry. That's what it is.
Yeah, sure. But, you know, there's a fixed point there. I see it.
But I mean, also, I would say it's not always only in terms of causality. I mean, yes, but not always. What I mean is that some of the cases you would have transactions come after each other, not because they caused it, but because they were initiated before it. So in some ways...
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so some ways, yes, it is ultimately
That's
looks
exactly.
like that.
You say this initiates this, so it's before, but it's not necessarily before if that rewrites a portion of state you don't care about. And then you can, that's exactly what I was pointing at, yes.
And that is, not getting into it, but the four causes of Aristotle, you know, like, so yeah.
So, are there any more questions in the audience? In that case, please join me in thanking our Fireside panel. Rick, Vlad, Anuj, thank you very much.
And if anybody wants to talk about Aristotle's causality theory, I'm always happy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Vlad. So this concludes our time. To close, I wanted to invite everybody to please take a bag of our swag. We also have a very special edition, Banksy-inspired limited edition. So if you are interested in some special Devcon Bangkok swag, please see us afterwards. The main thing I want to emphasize on the swag bag is it has three very subtle but important announcements about STXN. Number one, a link to lessnet.org, which is our DevNet we launched just a few weeks ago with unlimited play gas. So devs watching this, devs here, please link up to us. I think the key takeaway that you heard from the Fireside chat is this needs to be built out, and you are uniquely positioned to help us do that. That's number one. Number two, it includes a link to mevolution.io, the STXN white paper. As Ethereans, please peer review, tear it to shreds. It will only make it better. And the last thing I want to close on is a heartfelt bow of gratitude, respect to Team Consensys, and to announce our research partnership with Consensys, so STXN and Consensys, in pioneering and decentralizing and propagandizing this idea of smart transactions in the broader Ethereum ecosystem. As you heard from us throughout the last 2 hours, doing so in provably decentralized and provably fair ways. So thank you, everybody. Power to you. Go Devcon Southeast Asia.